Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Tao. My name's Jeff, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a big subject, the internal arts, and just what they are. So these arts have evolved over millennia, okay, since the time humans started here, which is quite an arguable subject as to when that occurred. Regardless of when we got here, or our ancestors, or whatever story you want to go with, human beings have what the Taoists call the universe within. Not just the Taoists, but all the traditional cultures recognize this. And it leads to, if you discover it and explore it, not only understanding of what's inside, but what's outside. Back in the day when I was younger, I remember all the libraries had right over the door when you went to go in, know thyself. And to me that meant turn around because I don't know what I am. Why should I go in there and fill my head full of nonsense? And so the Taoists are basically in that way. And so are the old cultures. There was nothing really written ever that useful unless it was written on stone. If you think back to Christian teachings, there was probably 10 things, if you can remember that guy on the hill. But for the Taoists, they never really wrote it down. There is one key text which is referred to most often, which is the Tao Te Ching. But honestly, it won't teach you anything about internal arts until you know the internal arts. The internal arts are passed strictly by word of mouth. By the way, I'm about to drink some single tree Dong Song Oolong, just so you understand what I'm up to. This is the best tea right now, or the rarest tea that not only I can come by, I don't try to get it rare, but it just happens to be the most rare specimen in the country. And anyways, this tea, very strong. So back to what I was talking about. Remember, I always have tea when I talk to you, either before, during, or after, or all three. Anyways, back to the subject of internal arts. Oh, that's good. So, these arts are always passed word of mouth, from teacher to student, and there's a reason for that. It's kind of like climbing a mountain, and so when you go to the mountain, you don't just run up the biggest mountain. You don't just start off on Mount Everest, let's say. You got to have a guide. And so, as tradition has always dictated, the one who had come before is the guide, and he knows the way. So you go to him to learn the way. And actually, that's what the translation of Tao means. The way, or a way, or path. And you can liken it similar to the path of an animal. It's not the path of a highway like we would make. It's a winding path. Taoists say, I have only one fear, but to stray from the straight, narrow path. But it's never that straight or narrow. It's just the path. So you got to understand it's not really something you have to adhere to and it's boring or difficult. Well, there's challenges, but the challenges are all in your mind. So anyways, the arts, what they lead to is you discovering what's inside. In the beginning, it's all about sensations and feeling. Everything Taoists do is about feeling. That's why we drink such strong tea. It makes you feel really good. It makes you feel your nerves more so that you can feel more. Very strong. Actually, as you practice more and more, what happens is the nerves that lead to your organs become talking and drinking tea. Something to avoid. It happens all the time. Especially when you do tea ceremony. Anyways, something to avoid talking, drinking tea. So get them out of the way, one or the other, before you do it. So back to Taoist arts, back on the mountain. See how good the tea is? I already lost the subject of what I was talking about. Anyways, Taoist internal arts. So when you learn what's within, you will soon find that inside of you is a substance that you can't quite pin down or understand or know what it is, but it feels like electricity. Long story short, that is what the Chinese mean by qi, or the word qi. Although the word qi, if you look it up, has lots of meanings and layers and layers and layers and layers. So in the beginning, it's all about learning about qi. And it's all done through breath practices associated with different postures. And while practicing certain breathing in certain postures, whether sitting, standing, or lying, there's even moving. As you develop this, you begin to sense the qi, the energy. And it's like a heat energy, like in a light bulb. And so the smallest unit of that would be like a candle. The largest would be like our sun. And as you learn to practice, you go from candle to sun. You go from absorbing small amounts of energy to absorbing, let's say, the sun. But you don't start out by absorbing the sun, or you burn down the forest. Because if you're not ready, and you try to eat the sun, let's say, it'll consume you. Once you're ready, then you take the sun. Only after your guide, your teacher, says, yeah, it's time. Okay, now you need to begin eating the sun. Literally, we have a practice called sun eating. It's not like you think, though. You don't stick it in your mouth. So that's where tea goes. The main basis of the internal arts brings your body to open up the system that existed as it was when you were in your mother's womb. And so when that system was running, we had something in circulation that goes around the body. And this qi substance, along with a fluid-like substance called jing. And in between understandings of all that, because none of these things can be pegged down with a scientific method completely, or with words. That's why they say the Tao that can be spoken is not the real Tao. But anyways, these substances, electrical and biological, circulate through your body. When you're in the womb, they run a certain way. It's called the water path. When you're born, and as you grow, it starts to run the other way. It's called the fire path. Now, all the traditions, 99% of what's out there today, internal arts, are fire path traditions. I don't want to call them degenerated. They're just missing a huge portion of the arts that we have called the water path. And this water path is what happens inside the womb. Now, if you can replicate the state of being you were in when you're in the womb, then you can replicate your body. And that's exactly what the arts are for. It's to help regenerate the body so that you can continue to learn while you're here without falling apart. Because, as we all know, everything turns to dust. Back to what it came from, and then you got do-over. Okay? So, as these pathways open up inside, pathways open up outside, and you begin to learn new practices that lead you to new realizations and new parts of the path. And so for some people, they want to learn the more medical, some the more martial, and some stick to the spiritual. The spiritual path is what we focus on because it leads to understanding the other two. But in practicing the other two, you can gain new understandings of the spiritual path. And that's why it's a threefold path. We say body, mind, and spirit, Choi Tian Sun. This is an understanding that goes through all the cultures, again, all across our globe. And it has for all time. Whether it's a Christian understanding or an Egyptian or South American, everybody had the same understanding in the beginning. Now it's just different because culture has degenerated, and so have the people. And so what Taoist internal arts lead to is regeneration. And so if you're experiencing the effects of degeneration, Taoist internal arts are definitely for you. Of course, there's the tea, the herbs, and the many other things, but the basis of it all is based on the internal circulation of biological and electrical or bioelectrical substances that we call Jing, Qi, and at the highest level, Shen. And this is basically the understanding of the three treasures of Taoism. The first treasure, Jing, being your physical body. The second treasure, the Qi, the electrical part, the fire within your heart, inside of you. And also, if you imagine a candle, Jing is the candle, Qi is the flame, and then Shen, the brightness. And that is equivalent to, say, your spirit, the brightness of who you are. So, over the course of time, we all learn these practices. We learn different ones for different times of the year, different locations on the earth. Different sexes have some different practices, but in general, we all learn the same basic roots. In our tradition, we say the Kunlun is like an engine. Kunlun method basically is a spiraling magnetic field that's generated from the heart. And that magnetic field then helps you to basically evolve your DNA. So, like I mentioned before, if you're experiencing the effects of degeneration, well, then you want to regenerate. You turn on this magnetic field, and voila, you get regeneration. Not only that, but you also get to evolve your DNA, which is hard to understand from our Western perspective because it's just not something that people talk about. But evolution is going on all the time. The weaker species die, new ones come, and we find these all the time. And there's people trying to save some old species. It isn't going to make it anymore. Dinosaurs passed away for a reason. Other species pass away for a reason. Human beings for a reason. Everybody that comes here has a reason for living. We actually say, if you want to understand it, then think about this. All traditions that were around before, the ones that have been here for 2,000 years, almost all of them had a saying, when I was born, I whispered my name into my mother's ear so that I wouldn't forget what my purpose was while I came here. And so if you want to know your purpose, and you want to manifest it, learn your name, and then learn to practice the internal arts. This is how you draw out your internal secret, your art, the gift you came to share with everybody else. And at that, I'm going to finish my tea. Well, I haven't even started, but I'm going to drink a lot more tea, and then I'll join you another time for another video. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.